No pledge, sorry.
2025 budget overview.
I'll start out with, I think this is gonna be, could be a very tough budget for us, the grocery tax coming out. If we lose the grocery tax, we're probably gonna have to cut back on almost all subsidies, possibly employment raises, ambulance, police, fire department, police department. I mean, we're gonna make a lot of cuts if they lose that. We gotta remember that, we gotta budget appropriately, and hopefully people are smart enough not to, work that tax out.
So we wrote the budget, we subtracted as if it would pass on just the grocery side. So that's how it's, I don't know if you guys knew that. So that's how it is now. If it passes and it goes with everything, then yeah, it's going to be basically what you said.
Be that no matter what it goes.
Yes.
But I'll turn this over to Stephanie. Stephanie's gonna give us a little, overview, talk about sidewalks, and we're looking at cheaper, I guess.
Yep. So I don't want anyone to be scared by the size of this PowerPoint, because we're going to go through this pretty quickly. A lot of this you've already spent a lot of time on. First, up on the board, you'll see at least what I've included on my staff reports for potential meetings. By the end of the presentation, I'd like council to tell me if you'd like to meet on the 16th at 5:30 and what you kind of want to see in your next upcoming work sessions. So just to give you a little bit of an update on our current budget, we're at 67% of the year. You can see here what the percentage collected in revenue is. We're sitting good at most of our funds there, and then expenditures. You've heard me say this a couple times in staff reports and in meetings. Our contingency is almost 100% committed. We don't have the ability to rely on contingency for any more projects through the end of 2024. I did do a breakout here so you can see how those contingency allocations are currently distributed between additional budget requests, like we had the Kiner property purchase. We had some unforeseen repairs. We have some cash transfers that are going to be necessary at the end of the year. Some retirements for employees, contract payouts, and then we had some projects that came in over budget as well. You've seen this from me a lot this year, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, other than I just wanted to, this is our report that we get from the state of South Dakota that shows our percentage change month to month. We had a number of years where we were significantly below the average of other first-class municipalities, and this year we're doing pretty good. I think 5 out of the 7 months we were above that average percentage increase. So
Can you show me that line?
this is Mitchell's.
Yeah.
So January 24 to January 23, we were up 7.86. The average was 8.12, and if you take out Sioux Falls and Rapid City, it was 8.66. But you can see February we were above, March, April, up and down. You can look and see that comparison. Some of that's based on when people report sales, and of course inflation is a factor in our sales tax going up, because the cost of goods that people are paying taxes on have also went up. We've talked about this before, especially when it came to the lake project. As you know, our collections in previous years, we were really pretty close to budget. Now, the last 3 years, we've been significantly above what our budget was, but we've been conservative in increasing those revenue projections. So like Mayor Hansen said at the beginning of the meeting, we do have the 2024 budget about $1.4 million below 23 collections, and we're up in 24 from 23. So with the increase in 24 and what we've left off on that revenue projection, that would be the low side of initiated measure 28's estimate. When the conversation first started, the Department of Revenue told cities to plan on 10% of your sales tax. That's how we got the 1.4 million. Recently, there was a Legislative Research Council actually presented to a legislative study committee, and they said you can expect closer to 48% of sales tax because of the human consumption includes things like tobacco, beauty products, paper, things that go way beyond groceries. And we've still had legal opinions that say that the city cannot collect sales tax if the state is not collecting sales tax. If we end up at that 48%, that's going to be closer to a $6.9 million hit to the city. If that happens, that's a significant change in operations. That's not, go ahead.
What's the chances that they will reword that before the election?
Before the election, they can't. It's a ballot, it's an initiated measure.
If it passes, then it's on all
So-
things.
So what we, yep, unless there's a legal challenge. So there could be a legal challenge to the ballot language, or I know some people have said there's a potential for changing state law to try to more narrowly define what human consumption is to match groceries. But again, that's all up in the air. We don't know that for certain.
If there's a legal challenge to the passage of this, will that delay any enactment of that tax?
I would take an effect right away with that.
That's a good question. Typically, initiated measure would go into effect right after the election. I don't know what happens during a legal challenge. I don't know if Mike has more answers to that or not, but no, Justin's not here tonight. So I just want everyone to keep that at the back of their mind as we go through this. In 2025 collections, that should say 2024. 2024, our collections are 8% above 2023, so that's an error up here. It should be 24 is 8% above 2023.
What are we doing to educate people about this? Mr. Lauritsen?
Can-
Are we doing, I mean, I feel this desperation, like, how do we make sure people understand the ramifications? Because at face value, it sounds like a heck of a deal. Gosh, the governor says we can afford to not pay tax on all this. So how do we do that?
The governor's initial proposal, her bill from 2023, that's different from this. That was a grocery cut, which was the 4.2% on groceries. This is different than that. The language in this, IM28, is different from that. And that's the reason the South Dakota Municipal League, South Dakota Retailers, South Dakota Chamber, if you click on the mouse there, that's a live link.
I thought that you were being funny.
Oh,
No, it's a live link.
I'm like,
It'll
this
take
counts
you-
right here?
It'll take you to IM28. This shows you what could potentially happen to Mitchell. Stephanie's kind of talked about that a little bit.
I know, it's just showing all the other cities.
You have those ballpark numbers. If you want to go back to the top, Stephanie, if you click on the right-hand side there, the 3 lines there, and take it to
Oh,
the
okay,
facts.
sorry.
Coalition members, you can click on that. So in Mitchell,
This is only showing the 1.4, it's not showing the.
it's 1.4 to the full 48, depending on how the Attorney General and the Legislative Research Council defines that. You know, it could be the 10% up to 46. Is that the numbers? So you're at 1.4 million or almost 7 million for the city of Mitchell. You guys know what that looks like for us. It would be a significant impact. And you talk about the amenities that we have, right? We closed the hockey arena, we closed the pool, we closed the rec center.
Yeah, people need to know that.
Right. Right now, if you go back to the PowerPoint, so go to the next slide. This talks about, I have these flyers over at our office. It talks about what happens if this passes. The reason it's bad, it cuts sales tax on tobacco, vaping products, CBD, mouthwash, toothpaste, aspirin, over-the-counter medicines, cuts it on that. Marijuana, beverages, toilet paper, anything we consume essentially, right? And the effect of that, it cuts law enforcement for our municipalities, it cuts funding for your roads, your pools, your parks. For the state, it'll impact education, the monies that they give to municipalities through loans and grants, low-interest loans and grants, and services that the state provides. And so, huge impact to the state, huge impact to municipalities. Not that big of an impact to the counties, though. They're like, it doesn't affect us that much. If you go on to the next slide, so this is a little bit old, but coalition members, we talk about South Dakota Bankers Association, South Dakota Municipal League, the Mitchell Area Chamber of Commerce and Development Corporation at our last meeting, both passed resolutions in favor of opposing IM28 because of the impact it has not only on, the municipality, but our economy, and what that means to our city.
I mean, I think it would be.
You can go on to the next one.
So destructive to growth in our state. I mean, it would
Well, you're gonna have
This would be
to,
devastating.
you're gonna have to make up those taxes somewhere else is essentially what will happen. It will trigger other things to happen, such as a potential income tax.
Absolutely. Where else are you gonna get the money?
Right. You can go past, this is the resolution we passed. So, what can we do? Currently, it looks like it's going to pass 60-40. I always say, everybody supports a tax cut usually, right? Like, well, I'm in favor of a tax cut, unless it's something like this, where it has really significant ramifications to services that we provide. Law enforcement, for instance, right? You talk about, well, you can close the rec center, you can close the hockey arena, you can close those things, and yeah, that's bad. But now you're looking at laying off emergency services, right? And those are services that we absolutely need, not that the other stuff, those are amenities, but you're not fixing potholes anymore, right? Like you really are gonna have significant budget cuts. What we can do about this, and we've already started the process, early voting, I'll talk about this later, early voting starts in 10 days, 11 days, and so people will start voting on this right away. And again, Joe Sixpack is gonna say, well, I'm in favor of a budget cut or a tax cut. It's just that easy. And so what it comes down to is education. We have to educate the voters on the reason this is bad. We are not alone in doing this. There's other municipalities. There's a few municipalities out there that are helping with this, but Brookings Chamber of Commerce, Sioux Falls, their Chamber of Commerce, Development Corp., Elevate Rapid City, which is the Chamber of Commerce and Development Corp. Out there. They're all helping with this. You can read the list of the different members. But what we can do is educate the voters, and we've started that process. Mayor Hansen came over. We've recorded a video with him talking about IM28 means an increase in, or a decrease, a cut in sales tax, but also how does this impact our community, 1.4 million or $7 million. But what that really means is we're shutting off the lights to the rec center. We're shutting off the lights to Cadwell Park. And to go further with this, I'd like the city councilors, those that are comfortable, I'd like to start filming commercials with you as well. So it'll open with Mayor Hansen talking about this is what we're looking at. And then, for instance, somebody standing at Cadwell Park and say, it's going to shut off the lights, and then the lights come down. Same thing with the rec center. Keep going. You're at the library, slam the book closed and say the library is no longer open. Hockey arena, lights off, lights come down. The aquatic center, same thing. Our tennis courts, our upcoming pickleball courts, those are no longer probably something that we'll be looking at. But again, to reiterate the urgency of this, early voting starts very soon. And you have about 10% of the population that takes off right away, or 10% of the voters that take off right away and vote early. And so we have a lot of work to do in a short amount of time. To educate the voters and explain to them why this tax cut is so detrimental to our communities.
I'm glad to know that you're on it and
It's,
let us know what we can do with
it's,
this.
Mayor Paul Tenhaken and Nathan Sanderson and David Owen, those three are really pushing. The South Dakota retailers, Nathan Sanderson, he'll be putting out a video, but he doesn't have his done yet. He's raised $300,000 so far, which on a statewide campaign isn't a whole lot of money when you spread that out. So it's going to be a lot of social media sharing and opinion makers in this room. You guys need to explain to people why this is so bad. Part of that is we'll help you film a short commercial. We'd like to get ours out probably by the end of the week if you guys are willing to come in and stand at Cadwell Park at night and then shut the lights off and, start that campaign to explain to the voters that this is not a good tax cut for us. The grocery tax, what it was originally, what it came out as, that's not what this is. This is something very different. And again, it's looking like it's going to pass 60-40 right now. And so we have a lot of education to do with the voters to change that 20% into opposing this.
Maybe security billboards.
South Dakota retailers are working on some of that, but they're looking for some in-kind. Again, $300,000 isn't a lot of money to run a statewide campaign. I would say double that, you'd be in the ballpark. to be effective. This is really a grassroots effort to educate the public. And and I think that's part of the reason you have so many Chamber of Commerce, development corporations, and others, Farm Bureau. There's others, Bankers Association, South Dakota Municipal League. There's a lot of people out there trying to spread the word, but it's a matter of educating the public, right? They don't pay attention to this stuff sometimes, and so it's up to us to inform them. It's up to you guys. Any questions? It's not all doom and gloom. We got our work cut out for us, but.
I'm good for 5.
When are you gonna have the video done?
If we can get you guys to volunteer to come out and film some of those with us, it'd probably be early next week, later this week or early next week, we could have that done.
Sure.
When do you want us to just call you?
I can shoot an email to Stephanie with, and she can share that with you guys if that works. I'm flexible on times. A lot of them are gonna be, like at Cadwell, will be at night. So it's dark, have the lights on, turn them off.
That's good.
I got my first volunteer. Thank you, Marty.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Well, and the Chamber Development Company, all of your subsidies, obviously, we go away, right? Those are easy cuts. Those are not things that you have to fund. So, on top of the amenities that that you guys support, such as the rec center and the pool, the other things that are services to our community, those are the easy, real low-hanging fruit for you guys to cut, so.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
obviously, our word of mouth, Stephanie, getting out is financially, the city can't, we can't do anything like that to give
No, the
word
city
out.
can't give funding to it. You can give educational information, just like I am during the budget process to tell you what the potential impact is. You as city council have the ability to say in the public what the potential impact is as well.
Correct, yeah.
We just can't fund a campaign. You can't use any city funds to fund a campaign.
And that's why a lot of the chambers are doing it, I'm assuming, because that's obviously legal for them to get involved. Okay.
Okay, entertainment tax collections, this just shows you where we are for the year. We're currently, another error, sorry about that, whoops. The 2024 collections are about 8% above 2023, not 24 there. We are proposed at the 23 level in 2025. So just to give you a quick overview of each of our categories within the budget, our proposed general fund budget is projected to increase 6%, which is about 1.4 million. Basically, we have a $1.5 million SRF loan that's coming in, so that makes up a lot of that increase. Property tax is 28% of the total revenue, or 34% of the tax revenue. Sales tax is 54% of the total revenue, or 66% of the tax revenue. We do have a projected 3% increase in property taxes due to CPI and 1.5% increase due to growth. Sales tax, I didn't increase $200,000, but it's still $1.2 million below the 2023 collection level. And again, we're up 8% from last year. So we will have 1.4 that isn't showing on your sales tax revenue to offset that potential initial loss. Here's your special revenue budgets. The airport fund might look like it's went up quite a bit there, but really we have a grant coming in for a hangar design that they'll be doing, as well as some additional grant money for, I think, runway reconstruction. If I'm remembering that right. Additionally, E911, there was an increase in the E911 surcharge effective this year, so that brought in some additional revenue for that fund. Lake fund looks really high, but that's because we have included the transfer out general fund into the lake to offset the cash applied towards the lake project, as well as the SRF loan coming in. And go ahead.
Quick question.
Yep.
If that loan for the lake, we will not accept the loan from the lake if the budget to fix the lake comes in over budget, we start over virtually.
Right. Well, that'll be a council decision what you do at that time. Yep.
But if it comes in, the repairs to the lake comes in way over budget, that 22 million is not gonna be spent.
Right, but we also wouldn't have this is just the revenue coming in, not the expenditure budget, so that includes the loan from the state.
So we'll take the loan whether we do anything.
Nope, but we have to show it as budgeted revenue. So you would not be receiving the loan if you're not doing the project. The loan is specifically tied to the dredge project, but we have to show it as a budgeted item in revenue. Does that make sense? Huh? Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see what happens there. Basically, the increase in park is really due to the transfers from general fund, and you'll see that a little bit later here. Here's our enterprise fund revenue budgets. For the most part, they're staying pretty flat. The main difference is in water and sewer because we have some more anticipated rate increases for upcoming infrastructure projects, as well as some of the debt repayment that will start on the projects that we're already in the middle of. Here's our proposed expenditure budgets. So overall, if you look at these budgets from last year, the same ones that are on the screen, they will have decreased from 2024 by 38 million. The ones that are increasing are airport, Corn Palace Fund, General Fund, and Lake Mitchell. But the ones decreasing are campground fund, EMS, entertainment tax, golf course fund, park fund, sanitation, sewer, and water. And usually those decreases are really just determined by where the project focus is. We had a whole lot of SRF projects the last 2 years in those utility accounts, so that's why they look really different. Here's our transfers out of general fund to support other operations. So here you'll see the lake fund is going up $4.6 million next year, or it's going to be $4.6 million next year. That would be if the Lake Mitchell dredge project goes forward, that's the cash that the city said that they would use for that project. So just because we have it budgeted here, just to go back to John's earlier question, doesn't mean we transfer those funds January 1st. We're going to transfer those funds when council tells us we're moving forward with the project. We're just showing it as a budget item. To park, our transfer to park increased $787,000 for 2025. Airport increase, that's really just for the matching funds that are required for the hangar design and the pavement maintenance. And then everything else there showed as a decrease out. This would be, and if you remember those, the first cover sheet on the big spreadsheet I give you guys that shows the fund balances, this is really showing what cash we're applying out of reserves for any balance of these budgets that are shown. So in the general fund, the only cash being applied is for that. It's coming out of dedicated reserves for the Lake Mitchell dredge project, as council showed in that previous resolution. And if the lake wouldn't go, if your project doesn't go forward, we just keep that in general fund for future capital projects. The other cash applied, we have a scraper that is like $1.2 million. So they're using some of the landfill reserve towards that capital project. We've got operations. Park has some dedicated reserves they received from LifeQuest that they've been using for capital improvement projects, and they're spending the last of that this year. So the $100,000 you see there is for those dedicated projects. Now, keep in mind, every time I show you projected reserves, that's always a fluid document, and that can change based on what happens in the year. So this projection assumes we only bring in the revenue that we bring in 100% of our budgeted revenue, and we spend 100% of our budgeted expenses. Anything that's different from that is going to make this different. But what I did is I took the starting balance for 2024, I took out anything we supplemented from last year into this year, and then what we're doing in next year's budget to try to project what our reserve balance is going to be. Right now, the estimate would be at the end of this year, this should say 2025, we would have a estimated balance of $14.4 million. That would be 59% of the 2025 budgeted revenue. I'm sorry, this is 24. and that'd be 59% of the 2025 budgeted revenue. One suggestion I have for council, it might make sense to designate that $6.5 million towards potential revenue loss, so that if that passes and they don't alter the language of that human consumption, it gives you a year to implement the cuts that you're going to need to make in order to keep operating as a city. And then if the legislature does meet, or if there's a legal challenge and they narrow that definition down to groceries, we can adjust it at that time, but it would take the pressure out of council from November, at the end of November, this passes, we got to decide what we're doing differently next year. You would have some time to implement those changes.
So that can't be reactive, it has to be proactive. We have to do that prior to the election, would you say, or just have it in the budget
No,
to
I'm,
begin with? Or what do you, I mean, it's not something that we can say, well, we can wait and see.
I think we need to designate that before the end of the year, because that's when Michelle's going to close out her books, just to get us back to what our stated policy is for cash balances. And then after the election and we know the outcomes and what the impact of the city is going to be, you can determine at that time what you want to use those funds for, if it needs to be revenue offset or if it switches to capital projects. I'm just saying, I think it would give you, as elected officials, a little bit of peace of mind that you're not making decisions December 1st. You can come up with a plan of how we're going to implement, what services are we cutting, what are we doing staffing-wise to reduce, to meet the impact.
Good idea.
Stephanie, is it a possibility, like I said, right now, we're trying to move forward with a 1.4, but is it possible to maybe two? I'm not trying to get a lot of work into it, but is it a possibility to set up two budgets? One is the 1.4 and one is the 6.5, so we can be proactive on both of them, make it easier on us to,
There's no way for me to show a 6.5 cut unless you're just applying that from reserves without making significant changes to city operations.
okay.
There's really no way for me to do that. I mean, you're eliminating staff. That's why I said if you're using that general fund reserve,
Yep.
it gives you as a council the opportunity to determine how you're going to move forward in that scenario.
Okay.
It gives you time to
I
implement
think
it.
your point, Marty, is very good, is we need to talk about what we think we would eliminate so people are aware of it.
Right.
And I think we don't put that on Stephanie, but at least give us
Yeah.
let's figure out, what facilities we're going to close. I mean, at least talk about it. It ain't going to be, but somehow we got to come up with $7 million.
Right, I don't want to be here sitting in November and December trying to figure out what do we need to do now. I'd rather be as best
Well,
we can, like,
what-
hey, this is what we're probably going to consider doing or
Yeah,
need to do.
and
to
as
operate.
Stephanie pointed out, we've got the reserves to fight through a year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But in reality, the reserves are going to be gone at some point in time. So we have to, as a council, start making some decisions of what is going to go.
Yeah.
And then that's going to hit home on what Mike's trying to get out, to the public is that this is truly serious.
Well, and I think some of those other discussions are like, okay, so if that's a loss, instead of just, okay, we're eliminating EMS, do we implement a fire and EMS district within the city that goes on people's property taxes? Not that we want to do that because we're funding that with general fund right now with sales tax, but if we don't have sales tax, maybe that's something we do. There's some cities that do annual road maintenance fee against your taxes based on your front footage. I mean, the mayor had a good quote, and I don't remember what it was, but something about,
There are no solutions, only trade-offs.
Yeah.
You will lose your tax, you won't have to pay tax on your groceries, but you're going to lose something else somewhere.
yeah.
And Stephanie, when you said what you were talking, I just wanted to stop and say, we need to encapsulate that. Because what you said was, I can't even do a budget without some significant changes to city operations. I mean, that should be a bullet point, and that needs to be said, like, serious cuts to what is happening in
yeah.
our city. And to the point that we can't even anticipate what that would look like. I
Right.
mean, people, they need to understand the ramifications of this.
And like I said, it's just so unknown because of our earlier estimate they gave us based on really limiting it more to groceries. Now they're saying the definition could really be this big, which is going to have a much bigger impact. There's also trickle-down effects. Like, for example, you'll see in the budget here, we have budgeted for some playground equipment replacement. We usually anticipate a grant to offset, a good portion of that cost. That grant probably, I don't know if that's still available. The money that we get from the state to help with other projects, mosquito spray and everything else, is that gone too? So there's no way for me to provide a budget for you that would anticipate all those costs, but I think by having that dedicated in reserve, it gives you time to implement new fee increases, whether it's road assessments and fire and EMS districts and whatever else is the offset, and to determine what cuts you're making too. So, no, yeah.
Good.
I was just going to say, we just have to give the public an example. I mean, not that we're going to say this is exactly what's going to happen, but in all reality, we're going to have to make some very significant cuts. And then where is that? I mean, we literally have to pare down employees. That's the biggest part of our expenses. And then it's going to be potholes, and then it's going to be redoing an infrastructure, roads, so this is going to be very substantial. And, fireworks, I'm sorry, Marty. They're going to be gone.
We can do a small show.
The biggest thing too is a lot of these taxes that are raised are outside of our trade area too. I mean, people are traveling here to buy groceries and everything else and getting that sales tax and able to get that money back. Obviously, we can only, I don't want to hear the word penalize, but obviously enact some kind of tax on our own local citizens within our city limits. So, I mean, so these people that aren't paying a whole lot in the grocery tax also, and then, like you said, if we do frontage, they're going to be paying way more out of their pocket because we lost revenue from the people that were making the drive into town and spend it buying groceries that aren't going to get affected on this tax because they're, they're going to get it some way, but what I'm trying to say. It's really going to hit home more personally by losing this grocery tax. So,
Right, and the other thing that I keep thinking about are all of the things that the community takes for granted that the city provides at such a
Ambulance service?
well, and beyond that, I mean, programming that we have
Yep.
for kids and all those things, that if we want them to continue, then the only way will be to charge the kind of prices that my sister's family pays in California, which are ridiculous, or in San Diego when my daughter lived there, everything was so expensive, and that will be what it'll look like in Mitchell, South Dakota, if we have to start charging fees for programming things that we have for our kids and.
So if you look at this, I mean, just because Mike brought it up, but subsidies are $630,000. That's how much you paid in subsidies last year. That's a drop in the bucket. We spend over $800,000 a year to provide, to make up the difference with ambulance services, because that doesn't cash flow 100%. And how do you make up that difference? Obviously, there's no revenue to offset fire services, police. I mean, you're talking staff. That's why I said there's really no way for me to prepare a budget without. Yep.
Significant changes in city operations.
Yep.
That needs to be, I mean, that message needs to be shot. Are you getting this? Message needs to be shouted from the rooftop.
So with that being said, of course, we're still being proactive in planning for if it was the earlier estimate that we got from the state that was just groceries. As a city, we've been doing that for 2 years now. We've been very conservative in what we increased our sales tax budget to be with the potential loss. But if it's human consumption, it's just, there's no way to prepare for that, so. Yep. So the next thing is employee changes. We don't have any proposed changes for next year. We did add 2 firefighters this year that brought our numbers from 177 to 179. Here's your proposed capital improvement cost by fund. So of course, the lake is the largest capital improvement fund that we have there. You can see those capital improvements broke out by type. So the majority of them this year are facility improvements. The past couple of years, that's been infrastructure because we've been doing a lot of utility programs. These are your top capital projects that are over $300,000. Of course, the number one there would be Lake Mitchell Dredge Improvement Project. Then we've got 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue, which are a total project there with water, sewer, storm sewer, and actually the road surface as well. Street overlay maintenance, the jetty, they need $550,000 of additional funds for the jetty. We have some funds in there to replace some LED lights and poles at the sports complex. This is just a listing. We're not going to go through all these because you guys will do that at a future meeting, but it's just an example of our capital projects for infrastructure. And then our facility improvements listed there. And equipment. Sorry, that kind of goes off the screen a little bit. On your one sheet, the last page of your big ledger size sheets, it lists all the capital improvements by which fund they're coming from. To the right of that screen, it will tell you if they have other revenue coming in to support those capital projects. So we do have, obviously, the state revolving loan fund that offsets the lake project, but we also get our surface transportation money from the state, and we are using some reserve funds, and then we have about $1.9 million in grants for some of our projects as well. Only actually 3 professional service projects in the budget this year. You had a discussion about this at the last meeting about the bike path moving. So we do have money in there to design the cemetery expansion. Additionally, there is, oh yes, that is the other one. There's 2, airport hangar design. And you can see the city's doing the general fund matching dollars. The rest is supported by a grant. One thing I'm going to need direction on from council tonight is what you want to do about the subsidies. President McCardle had said maybe you need to wait on that at the beginning of the meeting, but I would like some direction from council because I have been getting asked by those subsidy applications. As you can see, our 2024 funding level was $630,000. This year we had over $1 million of requests. You can see there's a couple new requests. That would be the ones that only have the red lines, the community theater, CASA, Mitchell Area Historical Society, and the Mitchell Rodeo Foundation. I did provide links to all of those applications. When council decides to do those subsidy applications in a future work session, I'll make those links available to the public so they can review the applications as well. And that I did also just give you a historical how much we've done in the past of each of those subsidies as well. So this is the end of my presentation, other than as you go through your budget information, please reach out if there's questions or something doesn't look right, because we were making changes up until today, so we might need to just take a closer look at things. In the past, council has asked to schedule a time to talk about subsidies and to talk about major capital projects. I would just like direction from you guys how you want to proceed or what you want to see next. The next time I have, whoa, hey, that was crazy. Hold on. I clicked on the next time that I had on my schedule was before next Monday's council meeting. That's up. I can't talk at the same time that I push buttons, I guess. Hold on. It's going to be up to council if you guys want to still have this meeting on the 16th at 5, or if you guys would just rather have me schedule those things for the 30th. I just need feedback from you on how to proceed.
I'm going to jump in here, Doc. Doc and I talked this, or Kevin. Doc to me, Kevin, maybe else. But anyway, Kevin and I talked earlier today a little bit about the subsidies, and one of the thoughts that came up right away with Kevin, I think, Stephanie, you guys might have chatted a little bit, but about waiting until after the election to see if we want to do something. But one of my concerns that I brought up with Kevin on it is, once again, if we wait and we do them after that, of trying to get everything back together so we can close out budget by the end of November, I believe, right? So I think that really puts a lot of cramming and pressure on all of us. I think we need to consider still moving forward with the subsidies, just with the thought of these would only be approved pending the vote, obviously, in November. Everything, we're going to have so much contingent going on. It's contingent on the vote, contingent on the vote. And this is one thing that we can say, hey, we're willing to do this, take a look at the subsidy and give you approval on it, contingent that the vote, doesn't pass, something like that. I just don't want to get us, we're going to be cramming already in November if that vote goes the opposite way that we want it to. So I don't need to have that on our plate too, is what I'm thinking. So do we consider getting them done sometime now when we're not rushed, is just what my thought was. So
One thought I just remembered that I did not state is that the general fund subsidies, it was, I believe, $460,000 last year. I did move those into contingency. Yeah, so this dollar, 380 last year, I did move that into contingency so that you as a board could determine if you want to move it somewhere else. Anything else that you guys want?
Calling that, what are you're saying, like
The dollar amount. Yeah, right now, all of the subsidies are at zero because I was not going to start, before we kind of plugged them in at last year's level and then not the new ones. And I think the impression it gave the subsidies was wrong. So I just plugged in last year's dollar amount into contingency so we could move it to those lines after your subsidy hearings. If you want to do additional beyond that 380, just know you're going to have to cut somewhere else if you want to keep it structurally balanced.
I mean, I think we all know that, obviously, with several cuts, subsidies is sadly to say right at the top, and then we continue to go from there on what we have to do internally, so.
So when would you like to do that?
I'm just here to give great advice.
I think the sooner we can have those conversations, the better. That's me personally. There's no reason to push something like this off.
Do we want to meet, early before the meeting next week? Yes.
Well, but with the subsidies, do we want to do that on the 30th? So that way the start of the meeting doesn't cut the subsidy session short?
That's a great idea.
So if you'd like, we could do capital projects that you've had time to go through a little bit, ask any questions that you might have, or answer any questions that you might have before the next meeting, and then you might have a better idea of what you want on this 30th. But if I could tell subsidies it'd be at the 30th, at least they know what to plan on.
Yeah, I don't want to do it before meeting.
Okay.
There's no way we're going to get it down to 5, 6, and then we're cutting, absolutely.
Be done at 6 and.
Typically, it's always on its own night,
Yep.
subsidies and capitals, like you said
Yep.
before, so then we know we can get comfortable if we have to. Again,
Sounds good.
I wonder if the 5 o'clock might be just a hair early.
5:30 is what I was thinking maybe we should switch that to.
Yeah, and that way the subsidies can make sure that they're not racing out of their business.
On the 30th.
On the 30th, I'm sorry.
That's at 6, isn't it?
Well, I had 5 of
Well, on here,
16.
which would you prefer? It's up to you guys.
I'm fine with 5 o'clock with us, if you guys are, on the 16th, but I'm just thinking the 30th.
Oh, I had two different times. So you guys give me you guys just tell me when you want to meet on the 16th and the 30th. You're right, I did have 5 and 6 o'clock down, so it's up to you guys.
doesn't matter to me.
Marty, you're the one
We're
that,
not going to do anything on the 16th, because that's a council meeting.
I mean, if we meet at 5:30, that doesn't give us.
I think the idea would be that we could look at expenditures that
Yeah.
we might want to see the city reduce or change that
Yeah,
night.
use that hour for us.
Gotcha.
And then the 16th, or the 30th, then we can talk about the subsidies, and that way we're not cutting them off.
so what I heard from you is start next Monday at 5 o'clock for any questions or comments that you might have on the budget. I'll have that tracking sheet that I normally do for you. And then on the 30th at 5:30, we'll do subsidy review and final board discussion. Does that sound right? Okay.
And that starts also at 5?
5:30 is what I heard for the 30th. I'll send you updated calendar appointments for those.
5:30, yeah. Gives us time for them to work and get done too. so.
And is Monday's meeting still okay at 5, or do you want 5:30 for Monday? 5? Okay. And that's all I have for the overview. We can move on to sidewalk. Yep.
All right. Well, good evening. My name's Terry Johnson. For those of you who don't know me, engineering project supervisor for the city. I was just telling Joe a little bit earlier that oh yeah. I was just telling Joe a little bit earlier that in February we'll mark 17 years with the city. And Tim McGannon, Public Works Director at that time, said, I want your first job to be is to start up a sidewalk program. And I think some of you council members were in here at that time. Not to age you any more than already, but But no, it's been good. It's been fun. Some of the first early meetings got a little crazy, got a little heated at times, but I think the public felt that this was necessary. Back in the 1978 area is when the ADA compliance kind of thing started on a federal level, which made all cities of people over 50 people make you to where you are required to follow any ADA guidelines and to provide a place for people to walk and to get around, mainly to businesses, but parks, residential, different areas like that. In 1994, the city adopted the building code, which meant anyone that applied for a permit had to make sure that they had sidewalk installed on all sides of the, curb street. So, and back even before I started, the council created a group called PATH, which looked at and developed reasons of why we wanted sidewalks throughout the community. They focused on parks, access to schools, access to businesses, and then try to create sidewalks in every area throughout the city to provide a better walking path or better accessibility to houses, to business, to parks, to schools, without having to walk in the street. So that's kind of the mission that we have that we've been working on. The last couple of years, we haven't been doing any sidewalk assessment projects like what we were doing the past 17 years, but we've been basically upgrading all of our ADA ramps as required by the federal government to make sure that we had a corner wherever there is a new sidewalk, existing sidewalk areas like that. So we've been working on that and we're about done with that. So I've been asked to talk to the council about let's get started again and let's look at areas that we would like to move to. We had a 3-year sidewalk plan that we kind of left off with. And the first area we're going to look at, Stephanie, is the area around Wesleyan. So the map, the overall map you'll see on the screen shows the red shows proposed sidewalks that were part of the overall plan of where we still needed to go. And this is in the area to the west of Dakota Wesleyan campus, and we have some parks in the area. The last area that we worked on was coming down Minnesota, coming by Wesleyan, going by the park, and then we ended here at Williams. And then we did sidewalk going down Williams, so we had a feed to go to Wesleyan and a feed to go to this park right here. So the next idea that I was thinking of is coming down Minnesota all the way down to Norway, and there's actually a house right here which would feed sidewalks that would connect from Pine Street all the way up to Havens, and then work ourselves going up Mitchell Boulevard all the way around that would connect to Court Merrill. There's a lot of sidewalks. There's hardly any sidewalks that are in this area where the red is. So that would connect these areas to Havens and provide a safer place for people. The one, and then along here, there's a sidewalk on the south side, but nothing on the north side. On the other, no, it's that loop. Can't read it now.
Milan.
Yeah, Milan. And then coming down, here's Nindy, right by the museum and Dakota Wesleyan's other office, to connect sidewalks on the north side of the park. We have a park right here. This is Pioneer Park. And then also adding sidewalks on this stretch and this stretch.
I can't believe we haven't done those yet.
Yeah, we are.
I really thought that we had been pretty good about getting all of the areas around the parks.
We haven't got to all of those areas, so. So that's the first area that I was thinking is a good one to start. The one thing that you're going to have to be ready for is These are some older neighborhoods. We're going to have a lot of driveways to fix, a lot of trees to take down. And they're just going to be in established neighborhoods that aren't ready for it. The other area that I wanted to look at, and I think is a good feed, is out on First Street from basically Foster going to the east. So this is First Street, and then going all the way out to Tiger, which is here. You're going out to a new development, which a majority of those houses, as part of the requirement for new buildings, have to have sidewalk, and then you got Wild Oak going out in that area. So I think First Street would be a good first place to get started with. And then going up from there, Marshall Street, and then some of these side streets, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, all designated in the red lines. Some of the biggest, so we need to, a lot of these areas have sidewalk that are going east, west, north, south. We're trying to get people to the park. We got a lot of kids walking back and forth to Hitchcock Park, which is one of our key parks in the city, and we want to provide a safer place for kids to walk. One of the first areas that we worked on was on Ash Street and down here on Birch to provide a sidewalk connection to the new housing development over in the woods. And now we have those east-west stretches along with Hanson, and now just trying to connect them together. We do have some areas out in the woods where people have bought an additional lot, where they have a little backyard patio area, or they have a shed on an adjacent lot. And I think those are ones we just need to have sidewalk filled in and get those areas done. Moving up, we're going to move up north of the high school. We have, I call it the horseshoe, 12th and 13th, east of Capitol Street and 14th. Older neighborhood, there are existing sidewalks in this first couple houses coming here, but then there's no sidewalks all the way around the loop. The same with 14th. The rest of this area, going between Capitol and Kimball, pretty much have sidewalks all the way through here. Other than when you get up here to 16th, there are no sidewalks up in that area. And there's also this whole area over here. We've had requests to do it, and we told people we're kind of working in other areas, but this whole Northridge area, Chalkstone, that whole area has no sidewalks out there. The other areas, so those are the older areas, but we've had some requests for us to look in this area. So Fair Oaks, which is this area here, and then Davison, and Greenridge, and then 23rd Avenue. A lot of this area on Fair Oaks were built before 94, which was before the building permit was in place. But then a lot of these on Davison were all after 94, so those should have sidewalks as part of the building code.
But they don't.
But they don't. None of them have it.
How do you get away with that?
The only way for us to force to put in sidewalks as part of a building code is this process. Go through the assessment process, or you don't give them a CO to move in their house. Sometimes they were given away, so the only other way to do it is we'll get a request, hey, we don't want to put in our sidewalk because there's no sidewalk in the area. So the only way we tell them is you got to get a waiver from the council. This area has waivers that were asked for by the council, but they were denied. So they should have ended up putting it in, but they never did. So the only way to force them to it is to have council agree, okay, let's go after these people. So I think this would be a good area to go after. It's newer houses, less impact to trees, but we're still going to have impact to trees. But these were people that were required to do it as part of the building permit process. Now, some of these people have already sold their house 1 or 2 times already, so it's not the current owner. But I think these are people that knew it was coming. When I look at other areas in town, the older neighborhood, the newer neighborhood, I see a lot of people walking in these neighborhoods. And like people say, well, we don't need it because no one walks here. Well, we can't get the sidewalk done quick enough before you see it being used. So I think this is a good area to go after. Green Ridge, we're going to have some issues with Green Ridge because we only have I think it's 60-foot right-of-way, where normally we have 66. This cul-de-sac was platted a little bit narrower, but we could still put curbside sidewalk in, and we could still make it work, so. Okay, going further, 23rd Avenue, we would just connect it so that we got sidewalk connecting to the highway. Another reason why I think this is a very good area to go after is all the blue lines are all the new bike trails and sidewalks that are going to be put in as part of the DOT project. So next year, the DOT will be installing new sidewalk in front of Vernite, the Honda shop, all the way up to basically the old steakhouse, which is right here. And then there'll be new bike trail that'll go from National Guard Road, which is all the way up here, all the way down to the bypass coming around here. And then it'll actually continue all the way over to Minnesota Street. So we'll have a bike trail that'll go from our signalized crossing all the way around the loop and all the way up to National Guard Road. And then we are in the talking with the DOT about creating the DOT is looking at doing an ADA improvement project along the bypass. And we're looking at adding a new bike route going basically around the bypass along Mitchell Christian School. And it'll tie into here. So currently our bike trail comes up the bypass, goes on 15th. Well, now we'll have a bike trail that will continue all the way around the bypass from basically 23rd all the way down to like 3rd. Because down in like 3rd is where it crosses and it ties in with our bike trail. And then we have existing sidewalks that act as our multi-use path for bikers, walkers. People could use the sidewalks the same as a bike trail. The sidewalks aren't as big as the other ones. The other area that the DOT is looking at doing is adding a sidewalk on the west side of the bypass from Haven Street all the way down to Loma Linda. So that'll act as right now there's a dirt path. If you drive along there, you'll see a dirt path of walkers that have walked through a path on that grass. So it'll be a really good improvement. So there's a lot of things happening, and we have a good connection with the DOT, and I think we have a good time to get started up again. Another area I want to look at too is Fiala Road. We had a couple building permits and waiver requests that came in for a waiver, and you guys held the line and said, no, we want you to put in the sidewalk. So there's 2 new houses here that put in the sidewalk, 1 new house here that didn't do it. So we'll go after them if you guys want us to chase it. And then this is a curb and gutter street. So we would look at extending that sidewalk all the way down to North Harmon. And then we would keep moving forward because we have a request to build a curb and gutter out on the street probably next year. I think we're going all the way, aren't we?
No, we're stopping at Wood Circle.
Okay, so we'll stop here.
Reason being is the property to the east is still in the county.
Which means we could only do one side, and it's better just to do both sides. We can't assess anything adjacent to the county.
The reason I ask is Joe's aware, there's always water sitting there, always. You probably drive out there today, there's water sitting there.
It's a gravel stretch right now. It'll be a good improvement, but we can't go any farther than where we have city limits on both sides.
Terry, are all the new houses put in sidewalks now?
Pretty close. All the new houses are putting in sidewalk.
We do have situations where, say, there will be a CO in January or the winter months where the bank needs it. So we will issue the CO, and then with pretty much a handshake agreement that the sidewalk's going to go in. And there are instances where the sidewalk does not get put in, and that's where we need to follow up with an assessment project.
We have a couple we're working on currently right now that are waiting for the contractor to show up on putting their sidewalk in, but we're on them. Say, hey, you need to get this done, so. So before we go on the bus tour, when we get done with the bus tour, I'd kind of like an idea or a guide from you guys about what you guys want to do.
We can just show this, how many year plan is that?
Well, it's it's probably closer to 7 to 10 year plan, if we work on all those areas. I think you tell me an area you want to go after, and then we just figure out how much we could probably get done.
When you do a sidewalk, how much is the city responsible for?
The city normally does, like, we fix the driveway approach to match in with where we're going to put the new sidewalk in. And then we fix sprinklers, and then the property owner pays to put the sidewalk in, redo that 5-foot sidewalk section, and then we will replace part of the backside of their driveway in order to meet ADA. A lot of the driveways and sidewalks, the existing ones, aren't in according to ADA standards. So when we do it, everything will be according to ADA. Now, for some of you that haven't been part of a sidewalk program, how we kind of run it is you guys give me an idea of what area you want to go after. Then we will go out and do surveys of that area. We will put together a sidewalk plan with assessment costs. We will mail all those assessment costs out to all the property owners. We will have a public meeting in here to listen to the property owners' concerns. And you'll hear public comment from the property owners. Then you also get a chance to comment. But as part of state law, you have the authority to require this area to have sidewalks. The only type of assessment that they have a vote on is when we build a road, like when we're going to build Fiala Road, we'll send out notices. They have the voice to say, no, we don't want to do it, and you can't. You can now do it as part of new statute that they have passed, but typically on that, it's up to the property owners. And then tree removal, the city has been doing it in the past. Yeah. So
Gary, can you zoom back out so they can see
Yeah.
all the proposed? I do know, just for council's reference, one of the previous guidelines was we wanted to focus around schools and parks, so
Yeah.
that kids getting to schools and parks could get there safely off the road. I think that area that's down by the park on the south side
Yeah.
would have been on that initial sidewalk plan that you reviewed that had 3 to 5 years out. Yeah, those areas were included that never got addressed.
And the other one is,
over here.
yes,
The next two phases that we didn't finish that we're coming up to next would be this area here, and then moving over here to First and Marshall, that area there.
One more question, Terry. Omen is very, very dangerous. We took it up to Tanner Music's apartments. But there's a ditch there.
We would have to rebuild that. The only way we could force putting in sidewalk is have a curb and gutter section. So we'd have to rebuild the entire street and get rid of the ditches, put in storm sewer, and add curb and gutter.
Ouch.
Council had asked about that previously, and I think we talked about potentially looking at a design.
It's correct. So I've reached out to SPN, and they're putting together a estimated cost that we could potentially budget for to do that stretch of Oldman from 23rd to Kemper.
But it wouldn't be ready for, obviously, for 25. That would be in a future year.
but
It just,
talking about down by. Oh, further, no, you're talking about that same area. Okay,
23rd to Kemper, yeah. It's just, they don't stay off it, and there's no place for them, and it's very, very, very dangerous.
So dangerous.
Jeff probably sees it way more than anybody.
Oh, I do. Little kids with fishing poles, right in the middle of the road.
So then we'd have that public hearing, and then you guys would decide on whether to go for it. If it does pass, the property owners have 5 years to pay it at 8% interest. They decide it to go on their taxes. Year one, the year we build it, we pay for the sidewalks. Year two is when we send out the bills, they could pay it. without any interest, or let it go on their taxes for 5 years at 8% interest.
Approximately what's a foot cost nowadays?
Right now, it's up to, I'm going to guess $6 to $8 a square foot.
Square foot,
Yeah,
5 feet wide?
yeah. When I started, it was about 3, so. So it's really going up. And the harder part with anything, it's hard to find contractors to do it. But if we put together a project and we bid it out after the first year, I think we'll have a couple contractors that'll be interested in it. So any questions before we go on the bus? All right?
Okay. They should be, yep. The bus should be outside. Alice City Transit bus, and I believe our driver is Paul Morris. Paul Morris.
not part of the meeting until afterwards.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But you'll tell me later? Thanks.
Okay, I got you back on.
What direction do we want to give Terry?
So Terry, how big of an area can we do in a year, or what you're kind of looking for direction for next year to try to tackle within, right now, what you've got budgeted?
I guess I would like to maybe look at, if I have about 4 blocks, and then we could try to go after that, and if we don't get them done in a year, it all depends who our contractor is. We could get done with more than that, or we could get done with less than that. But if you give me a general area that you want to stay on, like Minnesota Street or Mitchell Boulevard, starting from a certain point,
Where do you think, your opinion, is better?
I think I would start with Minnesota. I would start with Minnesota and then start from Norway and go north. Yeah.
How about people that got by without putting them in, can we enforce them too?
We could actually put out a letter stating for the people that built after 94 that didn't do it, we could send them a letter saying that we're giving you notice. You're on notice. If you don't put in your sidewalk, then we're gonna have a public hearing. We can at least send them a warning letter.
I think we should do that too. I think so.
And then give them 2 or 3 months. And if they don't do it, then we're gonna hire a contractor and get it
Are you
done.
talking citywide doing that? Or just these areas?
You could almost do it citywide.
That's just citywide, everybody getting paid for it.
But we've talked about this before, about doing it that way. And they said, why don't we just wait until we go into the neighborhood and just do the whole neighborhood instead of doing it that way?
Yep. So how our sidewalk budget works the last few years is we budgeted $75,000. That's what we've used to attack the ADA corners, any other small assessments that people have requested for a city portion. So what we would do is we'd look to maximize that 75,000 city share and do as much assessed sidewalk as we could within a region that we are told to work in. Then once that area is complete, so we budget, maybe the next year, deciding how the first year went, we would maybe go after a little more or a little less, depending how it went. And we would proceed in that direction and update as needed.
I do think one thing that was helpful the last time we did a sidewalk plan is you almost had color-coded, this is our intention, A, B, C, D, or year 1, 2, 3, 4. And at the time, council's direction to do that was so that the public had some notice ahead of time. So if they wanted to put in sidewalks before it got to them, they could get it done, and they kind of knew approximately when their neighborhood was coming on.
My 2 cents worth is that rather than look at tackling the whole neighborhood, I would suggest we look at doing those one property sections or one block sections at a time. If we say we're going to go do all of this around the university, and they say, you haven't even finished my neighborhood. That guy hasn't, he hasn't got it in front of his house, and that block, at least we would be finishing what's been started rather than tackling a new project, a bigger,
I feel like we need to
fill things in, where there's how many times did we say, yeah, they should have done it, these people bought that lot, they should do it, and it's just one smaller section at a time. My other point is certainly we should look at where there would be used, population of kids, et cetera, students, whatever, versus let's just go do something where, nobody lives up here.
I think we should concentrate on the Wesleyan area. And I don't think I'm quite understanding John right. He wants to jump around for sake of bidding purposes. If we can keep it more localized, we'll get a better price instead of jumping all over town,
Well,
just from experience.
When do those people that haven't finished
Yep.
have to finish?
So we did identify a few of those areas. I don't think it would be a big deal to go after those areas, but still have a designated project also. I think that those could be done
I
in
think we
parallel.
can give them a letter, like you say, Joe, let's put them on notice that, hey, you got sidewalk, the whole block has got sidewalk, and you got a 80 or 100-foot lot that you purchased, put a shed on, and you do not have sidewalk. I certainly think we can give them notice that, in fact, that they need to fill the sidewalk in, and I'm fine, instead of 2 to 3 months, given the fact that our construction sometimes is very limited on the amount of months, I would say a year. And see what they do, and then we can follow up with that. But I agree with John. I think there's some holes that we should try to fill in. But I also agree with Mike that I think we start an area over by Westland, and let's knock out a couple, 3, maybe 4 blocks.
And I think Jeff brings up a good point with the year, because I do feel like there needs to be a cutoff date, because our contractor that we contract needs to know what they're doing and what they're not doing, because that greatly, I shouldn't say greatly, that affects their bond costs, that affects their overhead, that affects all of their, how they are estimating the project. I did have a complaint this year from a person who did the sidewalk project in the past, saying that he absolutely did not like when a landowner went in and did one in the middle that he thought he was going to do. So I do like the idea of giving them the heads up, of giving them the deadline. If you do not complete it by this date, we don't expect you to do it, and we will do it.
I also think it's, if we wait a year, it also gives us the opportunity to look at what happens in November. Right, we're talking about potentially having anywhere from $1 to $6 million that we can't budget. This is pennies in that bucket, but pennies are probably going to add up really quick if that thing passes. And so that'd be something to think about as well.
And I guess that also might change how you decide to do your assessment projects where the city doesn't contribute as much. Just another thing to think about.
And I think you definitely could do an area and those spot little lots here and there that we saw. I think you could do a combination of both of them at the same time.
Do you think we could create a value that even if they, and I don't know if it would be a fee, if that by X date it's not done, you're going to be assessed a flat base? Even like, I'm just thinking that we say January 25th the cutoff, and then February they put one in, what happens to that landowner?
The only thing that we did before is we used to give them a heads-up notice, like a 6-month notice that say, okay, if you want, and it was part of the hearing resolution, if you decide that you want to do it on your own, let us know by this date, or the city contractor would do it. And 95% of the time, they had the city contractor do it because they couldn't find nobody that would do it, or at the price that the city contract is. So I think a majority of people, now maybe if we wanted to just put together a plan and then wait till after the election and just pull the trigger on what we wanted to do, start a small area, say for next year, but then know what, like Stephanie was saying, know what area we want to go after that next year and give them a year's notice that we were going to go after that one, say in 26 or whatever.
I think it really was nice at least having that plan of what we were going to do because people knew where we were going to be working on. It alleviated some of the concerns that you were hearing that, well, you're just telling me this now and now I have to pay for it. You know, it gives them time to plan for that.
When we quit Terry at probably COVID, you had 1, 2, 3, and 4 in your
Yeah.
5-year plan.
Yeah.
All these in that 5-year plan.
The one that we're talking about right now around Wesleyan was part of that 5-year plan. So they know the current property owners. I mean, the people that owned the property back then and back in 2019 is, I think, when the last time we redid the phasing. They knew it was coming at that time.
So I agree also with the area that we're looking at, just because, obviously we know the college and we got the elementary school, we got a couple parks. I think it's a great focus area. One other area I do want to bring up, obviously, is the Fiala area that we just talked about tonight. We're obviously proceeding forward with putting new street in there and curb and gutter up to that certain point, county line kind of attitude. And obviously, when that gets put in, I'm assuming Porter, is it Rockwell that lives out there too?
Yeah.
They're clearly going to put sidewalks in the front of their area. I just think it's foolish that we're going to have a sidewalk in the middle of a block that we're not connecting to, like North Harmon Drive. And we haven't. Correct. Because we're going to continue that road, curb and gutter, all the way up to Grunwald's area, or however you want to call it, wherever that cutoff is. And they're putting in sidewalks in that area, connecting to Chad Cahoy's, which obviously volunteered and was glad that he did it. Why would we not consider hooking this up to Harmon Drive? We got sidewalks in the middle of two end pieces. I don't know, if we're putting in investment and putting new sidewalks and a new street and gutter, why do we not want to connect it?
And I agree, it's a way for people to use it, and it enforces our program, because we want to bring it all the way to the street intersection and give people a chance to use it.
Be another one of those spots we're talking over chopping things together.
Yeah.
So just continuing down.
Right.
Make it all one.
Right, by us putting that street in and not connecting, we are advocating, let's keep the choppiness going. That's really what we're saying. So by putting it in, let's put the curb and gutter in, but let's not advocate the choppiness. Let's connect it so it's not choppy on Fiala Drive.
I think that the Dakota Wesleyan area is a good area to start with, but I think we should also go after the homeowners that are not connected when all of their neighbors are. As a part of that phase one, I realize that it might make the bid go up, but I think it would still be better, because that's the number one complaint that I hear about sidewalk is, why do some people have to put it in and some don't?
Well, and for them, they don't really need a heads up because they've known for a long time that they needed to put their sidewalks in, so.
I think it was a good tour we did, because you drive around town, you don't realize how many places don't have sidewalks until you actually have one. You think everybody has a sidewalk, but take a tour like this, you realize there's a lot of spots that there isn't any sidewalks.
And the thing about it is, the way we do the program, where we build it in year one and we don't bill it out till year two, in most cases, they're getting a year to year and a half, time before they even have to pay anything anyway, so.
I think that a lot of these people aren't gonna go out and hire a contractor because we're gonna pay for those tree removal. They're not gonna want to pay for that. That's huge. Over there by Wesleyan, it's huge. I mean, that one street, 20 trees in a row there, you rip down.
Big trees.
That was, I went by and it says, Kevin, take a look at this. Right where the sidewalk was. Remember what land it was?
Just to be clear though, that is current status quo city operations if we don't have to cut anything back. Not to be a Debbie Downer.
Cut the trees.
Is if the city's doing the sidewalk?
Yeah. So if we tell the way we've run it before is if the property owner decides to do their own work, then the city would not go down and cut the trees prior to. We need to be involved in it from day one.
Who decides when you do them ugly little curves around the trees and sidewalks?
Me. And it's a reason because we try to keep the sidewalk within public right-of-way. And they don't want to lose the tree, so then we veer around the tree to save the tree.
It's property owner driven. If the property owner would like to save the trees and give us an easement on their property, we'll allow that in instances.
And we could definitely go, like what we looked at today, behind some of those big trees. I'd rather go behind the trees and get an easement than going in front, because then you're getting closer to the curb, and it's just going to be harder to maintain.
I strongly advise not going around the trees like that. You know what's gonna happen? The tree roots are gonna eat it up, and we're gonna be fixing it.
You lived at the city park north of me. I said, Kevin, watch when they do this sidewalk. They went over 3 feet and then back. Well, the tree died 2 years later. And they said, they tore the sidewalk out, it's straight.
Yeah.
Terry, can you come back with, if we're going to focus in on those two areas? Because it's going to take a while for Dakota Westland.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe we want to kind of start there and come with a suggestion, and we can start mapping out the 1, 2, 3, and
Yeah.
if you want to go up to 5, then we
Yeah.
can shuffle around or do whatever we want, but at least it gives you a little direction. But I think those two areas are very good areas, and I still think we should be sending out the letters to individuals saying that to complete your obligation, you are required to put a sidewalk in.
Yeah. No, we could put together a plan with costs for the next 3 years, and then go from there.
So in the past, I know you and I have had this conversation. So if we bid it, let's just say it's $6 a square foot today. And you can go back to that contractor the following year, so we don't have to go through the bidding process again, and say, would you take this schedule on, correct?
If they're willing to honor it, yeah.
Anything else before we adjourn? Good, then we'll adjourn.